Welcome to the Scaleup Valley podcast, where we bring the best of the best to help you scale your business from 1 million to 1 trillion. Today's guest is Alex Bisbe, the CEO at Whisbi. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike, for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you on the show. You are one of the first entrepreneurs in the tech ecosystem in Barcelona, and I'm sure that the community will enjoy a lot to learn from you. Also because of my connection with the city, the opportunity of working with several scale-ups there. But first, let's get to know more about yourself. So who is Alex?
Good. Thank you, Mike. Alex, I'm Alex Bisbe. I'm originally from here, from Barcelona. I'm an entrepreneur. I started Whisbi back in 2009 with José Luis Cantero, the other co-founder and CTO of the company today. I'm coming from my background after working in several different industries. I spent part of my time working in the contact center industry, running a 1,000 employees contact center in Barcelona and Madrid. And yes, and that's where I got the idea to create Whisbi.
So now we are curious. What is Whisbi?
Yes, Whisbi is a video-first conversational sales platform. What does this mean? So we are helping large corporations to increase online sales and assisted sales directly from their website, connecting with humans, with sales representatives. That's what we do. And we believe on live engagement and we believe on video first. Okay. So everything we do, it is with video communications, and everything we do, it is live engagement in real time, obviously.
Got it. Sounds pretty interesting. And give us a little bit more kind of numbers and a little bit of a sense of the growth stage for the audience that is listening us, to get a feeling about where the advice or lessons learned come from. What is the context that it comes from? Right.
Yes. So Whisbi, it's close to 100 employees company with customers in all continents right now. Big and a strong presence in North America, being US our largest market. Awesome. As an individual, market. So the company, in terms of size, it is close to $10 million of annual recurring revenue. And thank you. And we grew last year more than 100%. So we are in a high growth scenario company. So yes, a 3-digit growth company right now.
Congratulations, that's quite awesome. As I like also to remind the audience and every single entrepreneur that I work with, just 4% of all companies get to 1 million ARR, just 0.4% to 10 million, and 0.04 to 100 million. So you are already at 10. So you are part of the 0.4% club, which shows how difficult what you have already achieved is. So congratulations, and especially this year again with being able to double revenues in such an interesting environment to be in. It's quite appealing. So let's learn from you. And we always discuss these 3 critical ingredients to scale on the show. So number 1, radical focus. Number 2, world-class leadership. And number 3, a culture of execution. Starting with radical focus. Of course, kind of start in an enterprise setup. It's not an easy thing. And sometimes we go through kind of the SMB segment and then we go up market. But kind of keeping the company serving both segments can be quite challenging. So what has been some of your lessons learned? Did you start from the scratch with enterprise? Did you move into enterprise and then decide to focus? So explain a little bit more. How do you decide to really assure that the company is focused and moving into enterprise, and what were the kind of the lessons learned kind of setting up the enterprise model for Whisbi?
Yeah, sure. We've been in enterprise since day one. So, and I
Awesome.
think the origin of this is because of our background. So we are both coming from this contact center world that I mentioned, working for enterprises, banks, financial institutions, insurance companies, um, telecom operators, this kind of company. So I think, because of our experience on this industry, and also because we tried our first mock-ups, our first projects in enterprise organizations. I think that was the reason why we continue with enterprise.
Enterprise.
Yeah,
Got it. That's a very good point because it already kills a lot of complexity of the need of needing to go from a SMB oriented business into an enterprise oriented business, or having to serve both segments, which are so different one from another, that creates a lot of complexity very early on. And especially when we see companies discussing this is around 5 million ARR, right? Which can create a gap in terms of growth to the 10 million ARR and later to the 20 million ARR. What are some of the lessons that you would share in terms of building the enterprise sales motion?
yeah. mm, that's there is one that it is very important in the enterprise world, that it is being industry oriented, or instead of geographical oriented. Okay,
Love it.
so I think when we started, as the majority of the startups, you start to tackle first your local market, right?
Mhm.
Different industries, local market, and the energy and time that you lose by tackling the wrong industries, it can be massive, right? So when you tackle enterprise, you need to understand very well the value proposal that you are offering to your customers, right?
Mhm.
You need to sell a business case, not a software. You need to sell a result, an outcome, right? So, and when you have a good result and good project in one industry with one specific customer, it is way more easy to sell it within the same group in another country or to a competitor than opening another industry. So for me, in this idea, I like this concept of radical focus. I will say that the radical focus for enterprise, it is to focus very well on the industries or the verticals that makes more sense for your product, or where you have experience, or where you have business cases. And then you, at the end, you are selling these business cases to other companies. And this has, we didn't start like this with this focus.
Mhm.
We spent a lot of time and money, and when we decided to go uh, to follow verticals,
Yep.
the performance increased dramatically, the ROI increased dramatically, the customer acquisition payback improves dramatically. So that's for me, the main learning on this field.
Got it. I think that's a very good point, and I think it's very aligned with the kind of the hidden champion strategy, where you want to be the best in the world in a specific niche across the world, and you are just focusing on a vertical. You are the best of the best in that vertical, wherever you are. But of course, you can also bring some focus in terms of geographies to attack first. But sometimes there is a huge fear to kind of double down on a specific industry, or I would even say more, even to double down on three industries instead of one. So I've kind of learned along the way that instead of challenging the CEO to go from 10 to 5, or from sector agnostic to one vertical, the good way to start moving it's to try to say, look, let's start by targeting three verticals and testing out what are the vertical where we can have the best fit, and then let's have the courage even to double down and go to the next stage of focus. So this is part of the process that you have followed, or or did you have already in mind that this was the vertical that I want to pursue, and it was banking or it was contact centers? So what was your experience there?
Well, no, the experience was as you mentioned at the beginning. So we tried different industries, we tried different verticals, and when we found good business cases
Exactly.
where we have seen that the real value is where we um, then we switch our sales strategy to tackle these industries definitely. So and we decided to tackle two like very like intensely, and then we have a group called others where we have
Right.
some industries that are relevant for us, and but we always we keep all of this group of others as
Lab.
as a lab, exactly, so where we can see new trends, new ideas, and then when we see one vertical within this lab that it is working really well, then we put
Again,
push
in
the
the
throttle.
industrial process.
Exactly, correct.
I love it because it's kind of the mindset of keeping the agility of a startup and the focus of a scale up, right? So keeping both mindsets in place. And there are some teams that are working in the scale up are super execution mode, measuring all the metrics, trying to optimize the process as much as they can, and working on the repeatability and the profitability, the scalability. And there are some of them who are completely out of their mind, looking for trends, looking for experimentation, seeing what can be the next opportunity of the company, but without the pressure of kind of following those metrics, those milestones, and being able to double or triple that specific vertical. I like the combination of the other because I think it's also for entrepreneurs. It helps them to feel less the fear of doubling down on a specific egg, right?
That's correct, totally.
So I love I think that's a great takeaway for this conversation to have a kind of one, two. I always say that if it is always better to be one, especially in the beginning, then you can start increasing another vertical. But kind of if you feel more confident with that, which is important for an entrepreneur, have a third one or a second one, which is other, where it is your lab. That's a very good one. Something really, really interesting in the case of Whisby, Alex, that you have mentioned before, is that US is your largest market. So for any company coming out from Europe, this is one of I would say, the major paths that all wish to. I would say that the exception might be the ones who needs to go more into an European strategy because there is a very strong American competitor and it doesn't make sense to battle with or to fight with that American competitor face to face in their domestic market. So some of them prefer to go much more the European path in terms of aggregation and being at a good size than to compete with the US competitor or even being acquired by the US competitor later on in the game. But I would say that in order to scale up, typically the dream is to really being able to land in the US and with a 300 million population market, being able to, with just one currency, one language, being able to scale much faster. But this process is also very, very painful for the majority of the cases. And sometimes it can have a consequence, which is the death of a healthy company in Europe. So it's very difficult to also find the timing of attacking that market. So what are some of your lessons? And those lessons worked quite well because now that's your number one market.
Yes, yes, US represents around 30+% of the total revenue today, and we are forecasting more than 50% this year will come from the US market. So absolutely, the US is a very important and a strategic market for us. I mean, but the path to achieve that has not been easy at all. It's an extremely difficult market. So we started to tackle the US market in 2017. Uh, by opening an office in the Bay Area in Menlo Park, hiring a team there, team of account executives, SDRs, customer success managers. And by then we had one big customer in the US only. The project was a big failure. So the access to talent in the Bay Area is extremely difficult. You're competing with incredible companies. Salaries are extremely high. Attrition is high, um, and starting, without a strong customer base, it was extremely challenging. So I think one of the best decisions that we have taken, it was to move to move the team from the West Coast to the East Coast, and uh, and start to sell from Barcelona, where we have the culture, the team, the methods, uh, the company culture, uh, and getting more traction in the US before um, doing, a big investment. So we did that. We hired a US team based in Barcelona, and a customer success team based in the East Coast to manage the few accounts that we had by then. And then we started to see fantastic results. Good results in terms of sales, being able to acquire customers there, and good numbers in terms of retention and scalability within the customer base. We invested a lot in communication. We traveled a lot of physical meetings before, obviously, the pandemic. A lot of calls with our team there, and that was you know uh, that was a game changer. Today we are in a phase where we are moving part of the US team to the US. I mean, a team that is based today in Barcelona
Exactly.
to the US, and we are actively hiring in the US market. Also, another important decision. It was the East Coast location. Um, Despite that, we have employees working from home and in different cities. We wanted to have a hub to where a place where we can concentrate, the majority of our employees, and where we can have, one day face-to-face meetings. And that location, it is Atlanta, Georgia. We have selected Atlanta, Georgia because several reasons. Number one, access to talent. There are very good tech companies in that city, like SalesLoft, for example, and
Exactly.
others. That's reason number one. Reason number two, in terms of cost, it is, let's say, acceptable. Um, so it's on average for the
Especially
US.
compared to New York and Boston, right?
Absolutely. It's way more competitive than Boston or New York, definitely. Um, and there is another reason that's that in Atlanta, uh, there is the third largest, sorry, the largest airport in the world. So, so there is a great connection, so fantastic connections to travel everywhere. So easy for us to travel from Barcelona to Atlanta or vice versa. So these were the reasons. The and also being there is also very well appreciated by our customers. We have customers mostly in the telecom industry and automotive, and they're always, AT&T digital team is based in Atlanta. The HQ is in Dallas, but the digital team is in Atlanta. Daimler Group, the US HQ is in Atlanta. Moxie, which is one of the largest digital agencies in North America, is based in Atlanta. So Atlanta is quite a big digital hub for enterprises as well. So these were the reasons, and we are very happy with that with that decision, and we are scaling very well in North America right now
with
because of this
with very interesting brands as Coca-Cola and
as well. Yes,
CNN, and I think that Delta is also based out of Atlanta, right? In terms of
I think so. Yes,
airlines. So it's definitely a very interesting and refreshing perspective because we always think and listen about New York and Boston when approaching the East Coast. And of course, you have mentioned also the two hubs in the West Coast, which is always to stay in the Bay Area or to go to the city in San Francisco. Maybe sometimes discussing also Seattle, right, as an option in the West Coast. But it's quite refreshing and a quite interesting takeaway to consider to have an hub like Atlanta. Good point. You have also mentioned something interesting, which is really important for radical focus, that I think would be interesting as well for everyone that is listening to us, which is kind of when we are in the lab and when we decide to double down on what works, radical focus, then understanding that the US market is a very important market to attack, and kind of double down on that market with with significant resources, because in both ways it might be a failure on the first time, but you also invested a lot in terms of the team that you have sent to the US. The problem there, and I think that the lessons from what I learned from you now, it was really that the customer base was not strong enough to go so early to the West Coast. So to the East Coast, you followed a different strategy. First, the time zone difference, 6 hours to Barcelona instead of 9 hours to the West Coast, assured you to have kind of a 2-3 hour time frame to work between Barcelona and the East Coast. Second, acquiring more customers and a stronger customer base from Barcelona, and after that, really having a CS team in place on the field to have face-to-face meetings with the clients and being able to retain them and leverage on the acquisition effort. But there's something that might help us to double down on what is the niche that or the vertical that we want to pursue is really this metric of net revenue retention. Are you able to explain a little bit more about why it is so important to you as well?
well, yes. I mean, customer retention and revenue retention, it is the most important KPI for any software as a service company. I mean,
Indeed.
it is number one. Several learnings here, because retaining customers is more important than acquiring customers. When we moved from the West Coast to the East Coast, the first team that we hired in the East Coast, it was not a sales team, it was a customer success team.
I love it.
So, and I think when a company wants to start a super, competitive market like the US or the UK, I think it is extremely important to invest in customer success, at least at the same time that you are investing in sales. Because as soon as you get the first customers, you need to have a team ready to maintain those customers, to scale with those customers. This is extremely important. We have done this, and when we had a team of customer success and customer support of 5 in the US, we hired the first account executive in the market. So 5 between CS and support, local support, then the first account executive in the country.
I think the BDRs in Barcelona, correct?
Yes, BDR for it's. You mean,
Or
well, I call it
SDRs.
SDRs, no? Okay,
Exactly.
it's the same, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, so yeah, we call it
Of course, the
SDRs.
experts might be able to explain this better. It's not my specialty, but yes, it's the SDRs or
Yeah, for me
BDRs.
it's slightly different, but anyway, yes. If we're talking about SDRs, SDRs, yes, in Barcelona. I mean, to generate meetings, you don't need to be in that place. I mean, there are tools like Salesloft or Bluebirds or other solutions that you can connect directly with
Exactly.
with prospects, and you don't need to have the team in one specific location, right? So definitely yes.
So you would have, just to summarize, and sorry to interrupt you, Alex, it's kind of having the SDRs in the headquarters in Barcelona, then acquiring the customers and having a team of 5 in between customer success and support, and only after that hiring the first account executive
Yes, exactly.
on the field.
On the field. That's correct.
Got it. That's a good point. Did you wanted to? So you were saying about the importance of, for especially for any SaaS business, or I would say for any business in the world, not only SaaS. If you are not able to retain customers, it doesn't make any sense to acquire customers, because the business is not sustainable. And you were kind of proving the importance of retention, not only by your words but by your actions, and that you invested first in CS before investing in hiring account executives. And I also wanted to highlight the importance of using the net revenue retention, or the retention engine of your revenue machine, to decide to double down on a vertical. So if you have an higher net revenue retention in banking instead of manufacturing, or instead of contact centers, or automotive, you should double down in the sector where you have a higher net revenue retention plus ARR growth. But net revenue retention should be the first metric, not the second, right?
I totally agree. I mean, why net revenue retention includes two things, right? So that you need to maintain customers, and then you need to upsell to customers.
Exactly.
Which means that it is the way to measure the value that you are providing to your customers. So, I mean, zero churn doesn't exist. That's a reality, right? So churn is going to SaaS companies, we always have churn. Well, obviously, we need to minimize churn, but also we need to scale with the accounts that are more happy with, and they are seeing more value with the solution. So this value needs to compensate the churn, and then this is a very important exercise. So you need to have a strategy where, I mean, you need to tackle your existing customer base by providing more features, by providing more value, by providing more services, and I believe that having an active selling strategy, so that you are selling all the time something, adding value all the time to your customer base, is extremely important, because this will drive you the most important KPI, which is the net revenue retention. Because if you are continuously adding new things to your customers, they will appreciate it, and they will stay with you, so the churn will be reduced. And at the same time, you're going to generate additional revenue with your existing customer base. So the combination of both, it is what gives you the magic number of net revenue retention, or net dollar retention. Okay.
Exactly. And it's kind of adding the ARPA to this equation. It means that with the same amount of customers, if you are able to increase the ARPA, you can grow the business to the next stage of growth. So kind of can go from 5 to 10 million, or from 10 to 20 million, just by increasing the ARPA. I mean, by being able to add more value to each of your customer base, instead of defocusing yourself in terms of acquiring new customers outside of your sweet spot, so it's a question of prioritization. Again, we need the lab, we need to test out new avenues of growth, but we can't put 80% of our resources in the lab. We need to put 80% of our resources on what is already working, right?
Yes, correct. We need to put 80% of the resources in the 80% of the business, and you can put 20% of the resources in 20% of the business. So that's for sure. And on that sense, I think something extremely important. It is this average revenue per account incremental that you mentioned, the ARPA, incremental. So we scale our ARPA from 60K in 2017 to 80K annually, and in at the end of 2020.
Wow.
Um, by adding value, by understanding. Uh, so what I'm saying every day to our customer success team, it is find problems, speak with customers. I mean, we need to understand their problems, because every time that they share with you a problem, we can put a solution, and this solution will generate additional revenue and higher stickiness for us. You know, in our case, we have a campaign that it is not performing well, whatever. Then, boom, we have a solution. I mean, we can integrate this, we can integrate that, and this is this kind of mindset of being all the time proposing new things to customers. It generates real value to them, and increases the average revenue per account. So as learning here, I think, as you mentioned, it is more easy to generate revenues with your existing customer base than with a new customer base. Um, so, I mean, it is extremely important to squeeze the accounts and to get the maximum, because they will appreciate it. The customers will appreciate it as well, because they will see more value on what
Absolutely.
you're offering.
So which kind of introduces, and we are already doing a mix of all the three critical ingredients, which is amazing. We are much more team oriented today in our conversation, which is kind of having the team working together to generate value to the customer. So it's this culture of customer obsession, customer centricity, customer value. If we make our clients successful, the company will be successful. And it's not it's a kind of an NPS that will generate a revenue target. And it's a revenue target, not a sales target. And that revenue target is created by a job done together by CS, by product, by sales, and by marketing, not only by sales. And this will also create a culture of teamwork, a culture that we need to make our customers successful. We need to help them solve their problems. We need to deliver value. And if we do that, it's legitimate that we ask a chunk of that value. And it will be impossible to not be successful if our customers are successful.
This this what this that you have described, it is extremely important. So you we need to align not only sales, we need to align customer success, and we need to align product engineering, marketing, of course, especially for companies that like Whisbi, that we tackle enterprises. The marketing that we do is account-based marketing. So
Exactly.
we need to dedicate around 20 to 25% of our marketing budget to existing customers. So I mean, this is
Could you
very
repeat the percentage, Alex? How
between
much?
20 to 25%,
Love it.
because you know, if you invest part of your marketing budget on keeping the customers, they need to see that they are investing in something that it is the future, it is working, it is something that also their competitors are doing. Their other markets are also adopting solutions like this. So you need to promote that, and you need to start with your existing customer base. So the alignment all of these areas is essential. And I will say that this is the key of success of the biggest enterprise SaaS companies today. It is this alignment that
Absolutely. That's why we see the emergence of the chief revenue officer to kind of coordinate the efforts and to ensure that somebody, if the CEO is not able, because of the lot of roles that the CEO needs to play in a scale up, is not able to align those people or doesn't have the time and the energy to assure that everyone is on the same page, at least that that person is accountable to create that revenue machine that adds value to the customer. Also, because sometimes it depends on the profile of the CEO, but the CEO might be much stronger at fundraising, might be much stronger at communication, strategy, but doesn't like too much to go into the building the machine, right? So that's why, again, it's really important to
I
understand this is a team job, not a one man job, right?
totally. I mean, this strategy, it requires a massive amount of coordination. So
Exactly.
on that sense, you need to have someone full-time dedicated in a very high level, in a C level, just to do this kind of coordination. Um, and this is something we are promoting in our company, uh, to have this level of coordination, with daily stand-up meetings where, you know, we are synchronizing on a daily basis all the um, high-level decisions, right?
Absolutely.
And we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but it requires a lot of dedication in terms of uh, like consistency, right? Every single day, we need to do a little bit of this every single day, and then we can keep, you know, this level of coordination and the execution of all of these areas um, will be aligned with the same objective, no, with the same OKR at the end, no,
Exactly.
for the company.
Just to conclude this topic and move into the next one, the conversation is being amazing, and I feel that it would need 2 hours. But just wrapping up this takeaway and kind of doubling down on what you shared with us, Alex, is one of the issues that I see working with leadership teams is really that building that revenue machine, which is critical to go from the 5 to 10, or even from the 1 to 5, and from the 10 to 20. It's always the machine that needs to be fine-tuned and refined for each stage of growth as a retention engine and an acquisition engine. And both the retention and the acquisition engine needs a job done together by marketing, CS, product, and sales, both engines. Because usually what we focus on is on the acquisition engine. So acquisition engine needs to start with a marketing engine, with a sales engine, with a CS engine, with a product engine. I would say, again, don't forget that the retention engine needs exactly the same. So as you were saying, marketing should start with your retention engine before going into the acquisition engine, because then they can document the value that you are providing to the customers, and as a consequence to new customers in that vertical. So by just documenting the success and the metrics that you were able to deliver, you are already creating inbound and account-based marketing to provide new leads for the future. So it's with the current customers that we generate the referrals and the new leads for the acquisition machine. And usually people think marketing, it should be to acquire new customers, even using account-based marketing, right? But we forget that, as you said, 25 or 20 to 25%, and we can even challenge that more at the certain stages of growth of the company, should be doing for marketing in the retention engine, not in the acquisition engine of the revenue machine.
I totally agree. I mean, what can I add to this? Um, Look, we I see, you know, on a lot of SaaS blogs that they talk about sales and acquisition and acquiring new customers. I mean, to be honest, acquiring customers, it's a very hard work, right? It's extremely difficult. But to do, you know, retention well, it's even more difficult. So because and one thing that I'm saying to my team also on a daily basis is that if a project goes well, do not relax. You need to continue adding value, because if a customer is silent because everything looks like it is working well and the KPIs are good, that's not a good sign. So you need to be the customer needs to be in continuous communication with you. Sometimes even if the KPIs are not good, but you see engagement on the other side, it looks like you are driving, you know, this project to the right place, right? So I mean, we can never relax on the existing customer base. We need to continue, you know, add value. because in the world of innovation that we live today, a new director, a new manager, a new decision maker can come and can change things. And if you are continuously adding innovation, if you are continuously adding value, the probability to retain that customer increases dramatically. And then this will open doors, to acquire another customer. And I totally agree with the idea of that the marketing team, they need to document all of this success, and they need to explain it internally and externally. So
Good point.
that's the main responsibility for a B2B enterprise marketing team, that they need to do. The first thing they need to do is account-based marketing, and account-based marketing, it is explaining business cases, right? Creating content just for you, because if you are a director of this specific company in this specific industry, you want to read content about this specific, role. And if someone can provide this specific content that you are, uh, waiting for, then the possibility to connect with that guy increases dramatically. And at the end, one thing that our senior vice president of sales always says, that if you tackle one industry, how many decision makers are you going to have in the world? Not more than 1,000, 2,000. You can reach all of them in LinkedIn.
Exactly.
Not in 1 month, but I mean, you know what I mean.
Absolutely.
But if you have bad reputation with them, I mean, with 1, 2, or 3, with 4, this can collapse the entire industry, right? So in that sense, I totally agree that this is objective number 1 for a SaaS organization.
Love it. So we have covered radical focus. We also covered world-class leadership. We also covered a little bit of rituals and the importance of the coordination across the revenue seats. I would like to highlight a final topic before we go into the last question of the show, which is, and it's related with the main topic that we discussed today, really the importance of retention over acquisition and how retention can fit acquisition, which is the beautiful part of the discussion that we had, which is when the machine is not in place, you can send a lot of money to the machine and the machine will not be fixed. So you need to create the machine, you need to create the playbook and the different playbooks, the retention playbook, and within the retention playbook, the sales playbook, the marketing playbook, the CS playbook, the product playbook, the engineering playbook, and the same for the acquisition engine. So there is a lot of work to create the machine and to fine tune the machine for each stage of growth. So which means that it is also important to find out the momentum and the moment that the machine needs more cash and will be capital efficient to burn that cash in a way that will generate growth, in a way that it's really capital efficient. So, and that's why sometimes it's good to not be completely obsessed about raising a round every 12 to 18 months. So there are moments that raising a round can be the worst thing that we can do, and that can create a pressure that goes against building a revenue machine and can make unsustainable the scaling up process, even the valuations of upcoming rounds. And managing the investors, managing the stakeholders, managing the momentums, understanding the timing for each round, I think it's something very, very difficult, and usually we only learn after doing that. So what are some of your lessons about when is the right moment to raise, when we should not raise? What are some of your lessons learned there?
Yes, I have a strong opinion on that, and there are different type of CEOs or startup companies where their main goal it is to rise as much as possible to have more financial capacity. This is not the approach that I recommend, or this is not the approach that I followed. In my opinion, we need to raise capital, when we have no other option, when we need it, when obviously startup companies and SaaS companies we need equity. We cannot grow only with EBITDA or with debt. This is not possible. We need equity. But equity is very expensive for founders. It requires a ton of dedication. It takes a big distraction for the investors. So, in my opinion, we companies mm, we need to close rounds when it is needed. And for me, you know, when I see, a company that raises a lot of money and people say, congratulations, fantastic work. I mean, I think what we need to celebrate is revenues, not fundraisings. You know, um,
Absolutely.
uh, what we need to celebrate is a good net revenue retention, a good percentage of growth, a good customer base, a good NPS.
Yes.
Customers providing good NPS. These are the objectives for the company, not to raise as much capital as possible, because this has at the end, uh, usually, well, they are super successful startups that they don't have this problem. But for normal, so like let's say regular successful startups or scale ups, um, we signed deals with liquidation preference. So that means that you are putting a threshold for your exit, for the same amount that you have, uh, for the same amount of equity that you have closed. So this also, it's something that, I mean, entrepreneurs they need to take care that rising capital is extremely expensive for them. So in my opinion, we need to rise, yes, uh, in the last moment, in the last minute, and also when you have clear, KPIs, not before. Um, so if you don't have good net revenue retention, if you don't have good growth, work on this first, because if not, you're going to spend a lot of time and effort in the market trying to get an investor without any success, and then you're not getting the growth, you're not getting the retention, you're not getting the equity. So that will mean a very difficult situation for the company.
Kind of, in other words, don't get into a situation that you will have no cash, because with no cash you are out of business. And second, don't raise if your machine is not working and if your business is unhealthy, because you will burn cash at an expense of your own equity in the wrong direction. So, and it will make your life even more difficult in the future, right?
Totally. And my continuing with this, I mean, there is one rule that we broke at Whisbi, and I think it is important that it's there is a rule that says that a SaaS company needs to grow year over year in a very high percentage, because if not, the company collapses, right? This is not exactly true. I can say that we have passed a period without growth, making the company almost profitable, very close to break even, and preparing the company for better, for a better scenario,
Exactly.
for to get better wins, and this can happen. Um, so don't worry if you need to fire people, if you need to reduce cost during a period of time to improve your EBITDA, to just maintain your customer base. That should be the main focus, and then you will have more opportunities, and then you need to take those opportunities to scale when the company is ready, when your team is ready, and yes, and there is always good momentums that you need to take, right? So I would say that this is important to be able to manage, and don't ask for equity to your investors when things are not going well, because this will jeopardize the relationship. So it is better to you know reduce cost uh, and wait for the thunderstorm to disappear.
to disappear. And this is a very important point. Is again, this is a marathon. This is not a sprint, and there are some moments along the way that we will face those walls, those growth ceilings, that it seems that the machine doesn't go into the next stage. So that's when typically we need to make changes, and those changes will require effort, time, determination, courage, persistence, and to follow your inner voice. Those are the moments of truth. So don't get tempted to go into the shortcut, because everything will come to be paid later on, right? So do the right thing and take the right approach until you are ready again to overcome that growth ceiling. And definitely, this might happen a lot of times along the scaling up journey. It depends on the ones that want to exit it a little bit earlier or later. But if you want to go to 30 or 50 million, it's normal that you will face at least 4 or 5 times along the way those growth ceilings. So it is never as the book says, right? I think that's a good point.
That's totally true. Yes.
So be ready, because you are building your own resilience, and the second growth ceiling and the third growth ceiling would be easier, and you'll be in much better shape, much better control, much better resilience, and much better communication skills to communicate with your team that will be in self-doubt, with your investors that will be in self-doubt or doubting yourself, and even in that relationship with ourselves, that we start also as entrepreneurs and as CEOs, doubting if we have the skills to go through those moments. And that's when everyone, including ourselves, is doubting about ourselves, that we need to be able to stay true all the path and get into the other side of the wave, right?
Totally.
Love it. And we get into the final question. This was a special and long, very long episode, Alex. So congratulations.
Apologies for the audience.
I think that I really love it, and I let it go. So final question is, if you would have the opportunity to meet Alex for coffee at the beginning of Whisbi, what advice would you offer to Alex in that coffee?
Yeah, so I think I'm not very good, in advices, but if I would say one, that it is to invest on customer success professionals since day one.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to not underestimate the customer success responsibility, because I think we entrepreneurs, we always want to invest in sales, in marketing, in acquisition, in product. This is quite obvious, all right? But it was not that obvious that customer success was that important for me at the very beginning, and we didn't start with professionals, so it was good people, super smart people, without experience on CS, doing that job, and this is not what I recommend. I recommend to hire someone with not only with the skills, also with the experience on that field. That when we did that, we saw remarkable improvements. So that will be for me, the recommendation.
So, final takeaway: if it doesn't work the first time, don't surrender. There is the right person for the right seat, and don't doubt that there is that person. It might require a little bit more of work, a little bit more of experience, but you will get there again, and you will know when you find out the right person for the right seat. It will be magical.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Totally.
Alex, thank you so much for making the time. It was really a pleasure to host you on the Scaleup Valley show.
My pleasure for me. Thank you very much for inviting me, and has been super easy and helpful and fantastic. Thank you.
Absolutely. And to our community, as you see, we keep bringing you the best of the best to help your scalar business from 1 million to 1 trillion, with a lot of frankness, openness, and talking about things that are not in the books. See you soon, and keep scaling.